Hi, it's Madeon. I'm French. I make music, electronic music. I'd like to say I make pop music with the sonic sensibility of dance music. And yeah, I'm a producer and a music maker. So Adventure, my album was quite meaningful for me because I didn't want to make an album for the sake of making an album. I felt quite liberated format-wise. I felt like I could have just done more EPs or singles. So I made an album because I had an idea and a vision that was fitting the album formats. I think that's an exciting thing about the industry right now, is the width of formats you can invent and explore. And it's not just albums. If you want to do something else, you can. But I had this clear idea for an album that I wanted to make. I wanted to emotionally capture my teenage years. I wanted to include all of the influences I've had over the past few years and make sure that this album would kind of serve as an archive of who I was when I made it. So that was my intention with it. So there were two different approaches I took for writing the songs on Adventure. About half of the album was done collaborating with acts that I love, like Passion Pit or Dan from Bastille, Mark Foster, and just being in the studio, writing songs together and reaching out to other people. I had never really done that before, working in the studio with other people for my own music before. I was very either very solitary or collaborating online, but I wanted this kind of human studio experience for the album. So that was one of the avenues that I explored. And the other was the exact opposite, which was being completely isolated and writing and recording songs alone from start to finish, and just trying to use music more directly as a means to express myself. When I got into music, I was, I guess, very blinded and excited by production and the sonic world that you could create, and somewhat disinterested in songwriting, perhaps because I couldn't speak English fluently, and so I couldn't understand the lyrics that well of the songs I loved. And over the past couple of years, I grew way more interested in that side and the depth it brings to music. So I wanted to start, writing songs that were more personal. And so that was the other side that I approached. One of my methods for writing songs is actually quite exhausting. It's basically I wake up a morning and I start a clock for 24 hours, and I force myself to write a full EP from scratch and finish it within that 24-hour time frame. And it's very intense because after 13 hours of non-stop production, you can get quite, you lose most sense of reality. You kind of fuse with your music and the tools, and sometimes it can trigger some level of anxiety about writing music. Like you feel like, oh, I can't write music anymore, I'm stuck. And that actually became, that feeling that I got became the inspiration and starting point for one of the final song on the album called Home, and which I recorded during that. So I try to essentially manufacture uncomfortable kind of psychological places to go to be able to write music that I wouldn't naturally come up with just in a regular day. I like to be quite thoughtful in production and try to make sure that the decisions I make are conscious and intentional. And that's been my approach for years, but I've also recently grown fond of albums and records that are, I guess, more spontaneous and imperfect. I feel like with music in particular, there's clearly a conversation between the intention of the artist and the interpretation of the audience. And sometimes unintentional elements, mistakes, problems can actually become endearing and appealing to and magical to the listener. And realizing that some of my favorite elements from certain albums that I loved were not necessarily intentional, made me more aware of that and respect spontaneity and the initial idea a little more, and sometimes going back to a demo and staying closer to it and not overthinking every decision. So it's kind of trying to find a balance between those two instincts of preserving spontaneity and also being very as thoughtful and intentional as possible. I had this idea for the Adventure Machine for a while, and so the album felt like a nice moment to try it out. And I've been really impressed by the feedback I got from fans, both because we try to make the interface really simple and accessible so that anyone, even without music knowledge, could have fun with it, because all of the samples are in time, they're in the same key, they're musically compatible, so it's a really pleasant exploration. And it's more of a, so it doesn't feel too effortful or frustrating. But also some more experienced producers took the stamps out of the website and made more complex remixes as well. And it just felt like a cool idea to merge songs together in that way and have people, come up with new things. It's something that as a performer, I've up until before I started doing, my new show, which is really focused on my own music. I toured a lot as a DJ and thought a lot about combining songs together and trying to create new musical moments by taking elements from various parts and giving people the tool to experiment with that with my own music felt like a natural idea. I've just started the American leg of the first kind of run of American shows for Adventure, and what I've always wanted to do this make a show that was a Madeon show from start to finish, that was my own music and that explored my universe thoroughly. DJing for me was really fun, but it was somewhat accidental. I never really intended to be a DJ, and it became a wonderful, wonderful surprise and gift and pleasure. But I was so looking forward to having an album out that would enable me to have the material to put together a show that was truly mine. So yeah, Coachella was a wonderful experience, because being able to do that show in front of so many people was extremely touching for sure. So I'm going to be spending a good chunk of this year touring, and I'm looking forward to that, because making the album was very much an interruption of my touring life, and going back home and seeing the world again is exciting. But I feel like I've opened a lot of doors with the album, and that I want to explore further. And so I want to write music. I'm really looking forward to writing more music. I don't want to rush into anything yet, but I want to. To me, like, the intention with the album was also to make something that was transitional and that helped define what kind of artist I wanted to be. And I feel like every time I write music these days, I get closer to a satisfying definition of what kind of artist I want to be.